right, glad you're with me today. Today I'm stepping out of my normal pattern of people that are doing God's work through acts of charity and reaching out, and going to talk with a really interesting lady that is helping people by encouraging better nutrition along traditional lines, not the current government message you get about eating all these carbs and avoiding red meats and rich animal fats and other things. So this is really a good news show because we're going to have a ranging discussion about nutrition today, and I think you're going to enjoy the news that you can really enjoy some great tasting food.
Yeah, that's good news, isn't it?
It is.
Yes. Well, David, good morning. I'm Leslie Bumpas, Redeeming Wellness. It's nice to see you. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, well, I'm a fan and a follower of some of the message you're preaching, even though I haven't consulted with you professionally, as you offer to the public.
Yes.
A free initial consultation. And
That's right. That's right. I offer up a free 30-minute consultation, really to see if it's a good fit. Tell me your story, what's going on. I explain how I work with each individual, and if it works out great, then we start a session. We start a protocol, and it's usually about 8 weeks long.
Fantastic. Well, and it's some lifelong changes.
I hope so.
For the better. I mean, you just were talking about how lots of butter is great.
Well, grass-fed,
Grass-fed?
grass-finished, yes, from cows that eat grass from May to September, as you know. That's when the butter has all the vitamins A, D, E, and K that we need for strong bones and strong healthy hormones and strong immune system.
So part of your philosophy and protocol is to really go back to more natural foods that aren't in the factory farm.
Oh, exactly. It's almost, you would call it ancestral eating. We want to go to where food was created. If it came out of the ground, you can eat it. If it comes off a tree, you can eat it. If it's an animal that's sustainably raised and cared for, you can eat it. The idea of the 50s and 60s boxed convenience foods really took us down a long, sad journey. And we call it the standard American diet, and we really call it the SAD diet because it is sad.
So that's an interesting abbreviation. Standard American diet is SAD. And we have seen obesity and cancers and all sorts of maladies spring up.
So when the government stepped in and created this food pyramid that had all the grains on the bottom and the cereals on the bottom, and then put everything, meats, fruits and then meats and then dairy at the top, we saw a complete flip-flop in health. Cardiovascular disease really wasn't even a thing to be concerned about in the 30s and 40s. It started slipping in the 50s and 60s. The first time we ever had a standing president with a heart attack was Eisenhower. And everyone was scrambling to say, where did that come from? How did that happen? And there was a faulty study produced, blamed it on fats. Fats took a hit. And of course, we were after the war. A lot of the food manufacturers were having to figure out what to do with their hydrogenated oils and their what we call corn oil and vegetable oils, which are very inflammatory. So I said this morning, the reason Americans are walking around inflamed and in pain and joint pain and chronic disease is that we've got way too many omega-6s, which is another word for an amino acid, an essential fatty acid that's vital, versus omega-3s. Omega-6s inflame, omega-3s uninflame. And where you get that is in quality olive oils, avocado oils, coconut oils, butter. We love butter. Again, grass-fed finished butter.
Well, fantastic. And as the viewers can see, she's a fountain of information, and a free consultation will be a thought-provoking and a new way of looking at your nutrition to really move from the SAD diet to the happy diet.
Absolutely. And that's www.redeemingwellness.com. My husband helped me come up with that name because I wanted people to take back their health. Be your own advocate. Don't be at the mercy of the conventional medical world. Love my doctor, but doctors don't get any nutrition training in med school, which is a shock to most people.
It is, really. They know very little about vitamins and food nutrition.
Nothing.
And they know all about the pills.
What makes nutritional therapy different is that I examine the whole body system. It's a functional integrative approach. I want to know what's happening at the basic cellular level. So what might be working great for you food-wise may not be appropriate for me or another client. And so we call that bio-individuality. I look at your blood work. I look at your food journal. I look at your symptoms. We talk about your history, your childhood, how many antibiotics you might have been on, and how many broken bones you might have had, and flu shots, all that can contribute to whatever symptoms you're experiencing. And most people come to me overweight, constipated, tired, run down, and usually fighting some sort of chronic disease in the background, whether it's diabetes, type 2, cardiovascular issues. And now, of course, with the attention being made to Alzheimer's and dementia,
Right,
September is this dementia month.
Exactly, and it's just very timely that nutrition evidently plays a role in those very wasting diseases.
It's interesting. I specialize in cancer recovery and prevention, and Alzheimer's recovery and prevention. And the one thing they have very much, or two or three things they have very much in common, are nutrition, detoxification, forgiveness. But Alzheimer's right now is affecting 1 American every 66 seconds over the age of 65.
Wow.
And it's an insidious disease. And there's not one cause. Just like cancer, there's not one cause for cancer. It's a metabolic disease. It's a weed in your own terrain that is growing. So we have to investigate what has allowed this disease to grow. Alzheimer's is the same way, and we know now that they know there's not a pill. There's not one drug right now. They're pulling funding. So we've got people like David Perlmutter that wrote the book Grain Brain, and we have Max Lugavere that wrote Genius Foods, and especially Dale Bredesen, who just wrote The End of Alzheimer's. And I'm a Bredesen-trained practitioner. He had a protocol. He said, there's 36 holes in the ceiling that we have to address for dementia and Alzheimer, and it's nutrition, what you're eating, how toxic you are, how much mold do you have in your house. So I look at a specific list of biomarkers as well as what you're eating.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So they think that Alzheimer's is a preventable
Absolutely.
or minimizable
Absolutely.
disease.
The problem is it starts to become active in our 40s and 50s. And so it really doesn't raise its ugly head until all the amyloid plaque is finally in our brain. And it strikes more women than men. 68% of all Alzheimer's victims are female, and 60% of the caregivers are female. So my mission, my God calling, is to step out, teach women now in their 40s and 50s how to live a lifestyle. Absolutely, because when it's too late, you don't remember your loved ones. You don't remember how to take a shower or a bath. You don't remember how to or want to feed yourself. And it is a financial burden to the families. It's a horrific burden to the families.
So the thinking is not being able necessarily to reverse the symptoms once they've gotten to their extreme.
Correct.
But to intervene in your life.
Intervene now.
When you're in middle age, so that you have a healthy senior year.
And it is possible. Dr. Bredesen presented to all of the journals and all of the professional boards. He had 10 clients with different stages of Alzheimer's. And he thinks that there are about 5 types of Alzheimer's. And he actually reversed all 10 of those patients. They were able to drive again, work again, be cognitive present again. So it's really interesting. And I just feel like that's my calling for women. I have some male clients. I don't turn down male clients. But I'm really all about the whole healthy woman.
Well, and that's an important thing. So really, good news, I worry about dementia. It's such an affliction, and it takes away your healthy older years. You can be in great physical health.
Yes.
And brain's gone and life
wouldn't that be sad?
Well, I have a relative who's super fit, been exercising heavily, eating pretty well, and, potentially has 20 more years of life, but he's slipping away.
Yeah. Well, two markers that I think every person should know is their fasting glucose and their fasting insulin. Those are markers for Alzheimer's. You need to know your cholesterol levels. And by the way, they need to be on the high side, not the low side. We've discovered that people with late stage Alzheimer's have very low cholesterol. They have very low vitamin D levels. They have very low sex hormones. See, cholesterol is a precursor to our sex hormones. So we want, as my buddy chiropractor used to say, we want the elevator to go to the top floor. So water, quality water, and great hormones, and keeping our blood sugar balanced. We don't want these spikes and the roller coaster that then sends insulin into a spin and then creates all the cardiovascular damage. And where does that come from? Sugar.
Sugar. Because sugar is a cancer precursor too.
Yes.
Feed the tumor.
It does. Cancer tumors really just grow crazy on sugar, on glucose. And that's the body's fuel, is glucose. And what's funny too is that I tell people, you know, your brain is 65% fat. So as Dr. Sears says, if I call you a fathead, you should take it as a compliment. But our brain does like glucose as a fuel. But we've all got way too much in the storage closet, so to speak. So if we start using up those stores and we reduce our carb intake, that is the processed carbs, then our body is forced to start using our own fat storage as fuel for the brain or the body. So that we call that sort of a ketogenic diet, which has been around a long time. As a protocol for children with epilepsy, it was effective. We're now seeing in the cancer world that ketogenic diets are very effective. So I try to move my patients that way. And now in Alzheimer's, the ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting is doing remarkable things for improving health.
Well, that's really great news. And what is ketogenic diet? I mean, what's the basic concept?
The word keto comes from the idea of ketones, which is a fuel that our body produces. It's a cleaner burning fuel. And again, as I said, it was kind of brought around in the 50s and 60s as a way to manage epilepsy. And it's the idea of dramatically reducing your carb intake to less than probably 50 carbs, incorporating a higher quality fat diet, avocado oil, olive oil, coconut oil, quality nuts and seeds, particularly macadamia, walnut, pecan, and a lot of olives, that then, and medium protein intake. So we've got 0 to nothing carbs, medium protein, and high quality fat. And it forces your body to almost like if your body's a car and you were burning gas, you don't have to change the engine out to make it diesel, but it's like your body goes from burning gas to diesel, going from glucose to ketones, and it's so clean and efficient.
Well, that's fantastic. So really a different way of thinking. Now, you're also a follower of the Weston A. Price Foundation,
Yes,
right?
yes I am. I'm a member.
And they've got a really interesting study, and look them up on the web, Weston A. Price, a very fascinating organization that promotes traditional quality, non-factory processed foods, but with some really good news about you can really enjoy the quality fats and other things in your life to not be living a deprived life of eating straw.
And Weston Price was one of the America's first dentists who was also a nutritionist, because he kept seeing in people's mouths, his patients' mouths, things changing. You see disease first in the mouth. And he went around the world studying tribal groups to see whose faces had changed, their dental cavities, their jaw lines, their whole faces changed when their tribe or their village was introduced to processed foods, specifically processed flour and sugars. So it's interesting. So there are Weston Price organizations all over America. You can join one, you can go to their meetings, you can learn about raw milk or grass-fed butter and meats and sustainable farming, and it's a great group.
Yeah, so I hope that you'll go to her website and learn about how you can make changes in your life to really transform your life from being a degenerative life that's headed towards all the afflictions of old age to hopefully a healthy, vital life. And for me, I'm really excited about the idea of staving off the extremely crippling and damaging to the family illnesses such as dementia and Alzheimer's, which, as you say, is this month is the awareness month.
It is. It's several diseases, but primarily dementia and Alzheimer's is where my emphasis is going to be right now. We were talking earlier about food deserts. Tell me about what your ministry is involved in that.
Well, as my listeners may know, I'm very involved with the Greater Dallas Coalition, which is a fantastic charity that networks a number of South Dallas charities that are really helping transform and uplift the people in that community. And one of our board members runs an incredible charity called Inspired Vision, and she is feeding nearly 1,000 families a day with vegetables and fruits that are unavailable in the food desert that exists in the southern tier of our city, Dallas. And Dallas has a very high rate of malnutrition and even hunger going on. She started her feeding mission because she had a little girl come to one of her charter schools after a long weekend who collapsed out of her chair because she hadn't eaten for 5 days. Her food at the school was her primary nutrition because her family didn't have money to bring food into the family, and the food they brought was low quality processed food. And of course, the Hispanic community and the African American community are ripe with obesity, diabetes
type 2,
everything else that comes along with living in a food desert and living on processed food.
Yes. We are seeing more and more children present with the chronic allergies, asthma, type 2 diabetes, obesity, what we're even calling non-alcoholic fatty liver. They think that there's going to be more 12-year-olds that are going to need liver transplants in the next 10 years. And again, that comes from that evil, high fructose corn syrup that is in all the processed packages. And it's now being marketed under different names. They're trying to keep it available, but if they deceive the public. So transparency and labeling is another passion of mine, whether it's in food products or if it's in skincare products or cleaning products. If it says the word fragrance, by the way, on your label, there could be as many as 300 chemicals hiding under the word fragrance. I can't even walk down the store anymore, the aisle that has all the detergents and candles and air fresheners. I'm so assaulted by all of that. Your body has to process those odors and those smells, and they're toxic. A lot of the shampoos and skincare products, lotions, have all these emulsifiers, sulfates, phthalates, plasticizers that really disrupt the endocrine system. So we've got little children coming into puberty at inappropriate ages, 9 and 10, when they really should wait until they're 11, 12, and 13. Again, found in the products. So we want to see transparency in our labeling, as well as I had a client bring me yesterday a snack bar. And she said, look, it's got all this protein and it's crunchy. We turned it over. It had 60 ingredients.
60 ingredients.
60. The first one being soy isolate. The second ingredient was sugar. Then it was rice bran. Then it was sugar. Then it was maltodextrin, which is sugar. So they hide the word sugar under about 50 other names. So again, label reading. You've got to be your own advocate.
Well, and labels are so small on these snack packages
that's right.
that you need a magnifying glass to read it.
I did use a magnifying glass.
So buy yourself a magnifying glass and read your labels. But even better, go to her website and make a free consultation. You'll really enjoy it. I first met Leslie at a Rotary meeting, which I love Rotary, and I would encourage anybody who has a heart to give and be around people that are givers. Join a Rotary Club or come to a Rotary Club and visit. It's really a phenomenal organization that is making a huge difference in the world.
Do you remember the question
in a small, quiet way.
The question I asked your group? And there was one gentleman in the back. I said, did anybody here know what Crisco is? And everyone kind of had that blank look like, well, it was something in a can in Grandma's house. And there was one gentleman that knew what really Crisco is. And it's hydrogenated cottonseed oil. And it was everything. Isn't it lard? Isn't it fat? No, it's cottonseed oil, which is not a food product, by the way.
Yeah, it wasn't part of the traditional diet at all.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. And it's dangerous. It's an omega-6. It's very inflammatory. So, but marketing made it pretty. They had the girl there with the tub of Crisco, and this is if you had a nice, clean household, you baked with Crisco. Yeah.
Yeah, and they tainted lard, which is a natural fat.
Exactly. They made it sound like, again, the media, not to slam media, but the advertising campaigns were ruthless. You had a dirty house, you had dirty children, you were probably not as educated, you weren't smart and hip and cool in the 50s unless you used Crisco.
Right.
You know? So again, then back then they also had ads in the magazines and on TV with doctors smoking cigarettes, and so we know that that's flipped on its head. Yeah.
Well, it's really incredible all the things that go on in the interconnection between nutrition and health. Mm-hmm. And as you pointed out earlier, doctors don't get any nutrition training.
Very little.
They get lots of pharmaceutical training.
Yes, they do.
And they get a constant stream of marketers coming into their offices to share the latest, greatest, expensive pharmaceutical.
Yes.
But nobody coming from the natural food industry saying, "Here, doctor, here's a way to fight cancer, minimize cancer."
They used to write on their prescription pad, "Eat cleaner food and exercise more." But we know it's really not a concept of, eat less, exercise more. That can be futile and that can be discouraging. What we need to say is, let's look at what we're eating down at the biological cellular level. What is an amino acid? What is an essential fatty acid? How does it build good skin? How does it build strong bones? How does it build muscle? And how does it support our brain?
Well, and that's the area of nutrition. And of course, there are a lot of nutritionists that are under the sway of the government pyramid. Yes. And so don't think that all nutritionists are a great asset, because many of them do propose, diets that are very harmful.
Well, if you've been in a hospital lately or visited a loved one in a hospital, you'll see little tubs of margarine. You'll see artificial sweeteners. You'll see cans of Ensure, that type of thing. And those are nutritionally deficit. Not only are they just empty calories, they're dangerous calories.
So you recommend against drinking things like Ensure?
Oh, bone broth. Bone broth. Yeah, there are alternative products out there for Ensure. You have to really search them out. And I have a couple sources in my office so that I share with clients, especially if I had a client who just had all sorts of oral surgery and couldn't eat solids, so we found an alternative. Yeah.
Well, it's really a great resource, and there's a need for more people like you.
Thank you.
To help steer people away from this very harmful advice. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal today about how the government is trying to promote carbs and fight the low-carb diet.
It's because of the lobbyists.
Well,
if we give up corn and wheat,
it's tremendous profit for the food process.
Yes, yes.
Everybody thinks the farmers make a lot of money. The farmers make almost no money.
No, it's a shame.
The processors upgrade, wheat that's 2 cents a pound or 5 cents a pound into a product that sells for $2 a pound.
And wheat is interesting. But in addition to having a biology degree, I have a horticulture degree. So I understand the agriculture background. And the wheat that we used to grow
was very high protein.
And it was very tall. And it only had a few kernels. Now we've genetically modified and hybridized our wheat to make it much shorter, to fit under the combines. So that's step number one. So it stands up better. It has more kernels and more grains.
But the yields have gone up dramatically, but quality has gone down.
But they're spraying these fields with the glyphosate, with the Roundup, to what's called desiccate the field, so that the field can be harvested all at the same time. Because traditionally, wheat used to ripen sort of at odd times. So everything you eat that has any sort of wheat or corn in it is going to be covered in Roundup, which is designed to make a bug's stomach explode. What do you think it's doing to you? Or your children?
Yeah.
Or your children's brains.
So a lot of things to think about when you go to the grocery store. Of course, you would be an advocate of
stay on the aisles, stay on the outside, get the fresh.
Stay on the outside, eat the fresh. When you can, go to a farmer's market.
Absolutely.
Or a co-op.
Yep.
Or I'll give a plug for this great store that I'm an investor in, part owner, which is local yokel up in McKinney.
Oh yes, I love that store.
Isn't it great?
It is. It's
great
lots of fun.
meats, great natural foods, natural milk, just really a breath of fresh air compared to going to the grocery store and getting malnutrition.
We live in such a great city. We have lots of opportunities to shop clean, even if it's Aldi, if it's Sprouts, greengrocer, natural grocer. There are ways to feed your family in a way that's clean and healthy and nutrient dense without the toxins, without the poisons. We just have to get creative and be your own advocate, or come talk to someone like me.
Yeah. Well, and that's the great news, is there is an alternative to having degenerative health diseases. And the good news too is that it's actually real cost effective, because the pharmaceutical medical industry has super expensive, quote, solutions that can actually create more problems,
yeah.
than they solve. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody that watches one of these pharmaceutical ads that are rampant on TV, that's a big indicator that the profit margins are huge. But when you hear the list of side effects,
It's scary.
It's terrifying. You're just like, I'm just like,
Death.
Thank God I don't
Bleeding
have
to death. It's always usually, if you're allergic to this product, don't take it. I'm like, oh, how do you know if you're allergic to it? You're gonna die. Yeah, it's scary.
So the good news is, look up Weston A. Price, go to Redeeming Wellness, and find out what you can do to make your health better and really enjoy the vitality that comes with eating what God gave us in the world to eat, not what man has perverted through processing and faking people out. I mean, artificial flavors and artificial fragrances fool our minds that we're getting something good when what we're actually getting is something very harmful to us, both in the fragrance and the fact that it's covering up the fact that the food or product really isn't good.
Right.
So, you know, we're getting fooled by the marketers, and that really rings back to your message and your practice.
Yes. Take back your health.
Take back your health. And you know, this is just an example of somebody that's helping others and loving their neighbor while having a business to help people really change their lives. So when you think about what you do to love your neighbors yourself, it can be a positive business that really makes the world a better place, or it can be donating your time to your church and to great charities like the Greater Dallas Coalition. We'd love for you to come to a monthly meeting. Please go to our website. Have a great day. It's been wonderful to visit with you and have Karen with us, and take care.